Hi, this is Derek. I have another VHS Memories review for today. Today's review is Dawn of the Dead, the 1978 classic from George A. Romero. Of course, a sequel to Night of the Living Dead. Really cool VHS here. It's the clamshell kind of set here. Really like kind of crazy, trippy artwork here. I guess it's even signed by George A. Romero. Can you believe that? Well, no, all the editions of this came like this, but still kind of cool. But it does have, it's like, this was like kind of a really cool thing in the day. But it has like liner notes in here, and kind of it's like an alternate poster, which I think is pretty cool. When there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth. Of course, the famous tagline. Some notes from George A. Romero, where he talks about the making of the movie and all the fun he had. I'm sure. Basically, the memory with this one is, well, let me take you back to a time. This is 1998, when I first got internet. That's when you'd like dial into the computer and make the noise like that kind of stuff. Trying to seek out all these horror movies. Basically, there's one website that I went to that I really liked, called houseofhorrors.com, where it was just an independent horror movie fan site. But this guy who made the site, he kind of outlined like the best of the best of horror movies. He called it the Vault. I think the website's still up, exactly the way it was in that time. So definitely give it a look, houseofhorrors.com. But kind of my mission was to see all the movies on that list, on the vault. And of course, Dawn of the Dead was one of those movies. This was like one of the very first instances where I blind bought a movie. So this is 1998 for the 20th anniversary. I don't know, I saw this in the store. I'm like, I want this. I'm going to get this. So that's kind of the memory there. And I've watched this time and time again. I had never seen it before. In fact, I had never seen Night of the Living Dead either. So this is kind of like a fresh new experience for me. Had minimal exposure to zombies, but I think if you're looking again into zombie movies, this absolutely is kind of the first place to go if you don't want to do the original, which I think maybe you should see the original first. But I mean, Dawn of the Dead, you can't beat that. Pretty straightforward premise. It does take place after Night of the Living Dead, and how things have gotten even worse. Whole city is or not whole city, whole fucking world is plagued by all these zombies. Everyone's trying to evacuate, get to where they can. So we have this group of people. One is a news reporting helicopter guy, and his girlfriend who works as a producer on a news show, and they're two SWAT team friends. They get the helicopter, get the hell out of Dodge, get out of here. We can't stand it in the city. And they look for refuge, and of course they find it in a mall, the Monroeville Mall. And that's the basic premise of the movie. They kind of stop there first for like gas and supplies, but then they sort of realize, hey, this is kind of a good hideout, basically. And I think what's really good about the movie, of course, same kind of social commentary that is even heightened from what we saw in the first movie, because there is some racial stuff at the beginning of the movie. We see like really racist prick cops, and kind of the extremes that they go to. But here it does kind of explore consumerism. One, you have the zombies who they're still in the mall. They kind of theorize, well, the real person, whoever this used to be, they must be so used to going to this mall that it's part of their mind. It's just their instinct to go there, and that's kind of interesting. Meanwhile, you can say, oh, well, shoppers in malls, they're all just zombies anyway, just consuming. If it's not electronics and makeup and all kinds of crap or whatever, it's human flesh. So that's kind of what they're saying there. But at the same time, it kind of looks into this sort of like this little, sort of like a kind of like a fantasy that you'd have. Like, what if you had a whole mall to yourself? Where would you go? What would you do? And part of that's kind of fun. And I do like that they don't really shy away from kind of what would be fun about that. Like, they show them having a good time, and you know, raiding the stores and finding all the fun stuff that they want and all the food and anything they could possibly want. So that's really cool, and I like that they don't shy away from that. You look at the remake, which is a fine movie in and of itself. I mean, that's one of the better remakes, but it didn't really kind of grasp that, which is why I think this movie is so much better. But then you got to figure after a while, the fun's going to stop. It's going to start feeling like a prison. So that's kind of what it is to these characters. After a while, it's made all the more complex, of course, by the biker gang who decides to raid their little party and fuck everything up for them. And one of the great carnage-filled climaxes of any zombie movie, really. So there's all that kind of stuff there, and I wasn't really expecting as good of a movie. Like, again, this is 1998. You could see a little, fan website like that, but, I wasn't really aware of, like, kind of, I don't know, the cultural impact that this movie had. But, of course, obviously, it's, like, one of the most well-regarded movies in the horror genre, needless to say. Part of that is because there's a little bit something more. I know it got, fairly good reviews, at the time and still today, because of like that little added social commentary. But I think obviously for horror fans, for the gore hounds, this is some of the best blood and guts that you'll ever see in a horror movie. One, because it's all practical. Obviously, there's no fucking CGI back then in 1978. Two, it's the maestro Tom Savini kind of behind the helm. And three, they don't really shy away from going over the top in a certain kind of way. I know I said a couple of months ago, I reviewed the first Night of the Living Dead. I said, well, because it's not really that high budget, they can't really show off the gore, and that kind of helps, which is true. But here they take an opposite approach to that, where they're like, let's just fucking show everything. And there's like nuts stuff here, like blood so over the top that you kind of almost get a comical sense out of it. I think the intent here was to make kind of a comic booky type of movie, and that absolutely shows in the final product there. There's so many bloody scenes. Like one that really stood out to me, putting the pick in the ear of the zombie, and then like a pool of blood just appears. That's pretty nasty. In the complex back in the city, the woman, she sees her husband, who's now a zombie, takes a friggin' bite out of her shoulder, and then like blood just splurts out, and a guy gets his head shot and exploded, and it's all fucked up shit. And of course, the most memorable, gory, tastic part of this movie is the guy in the blood pressure machine at the end of the movie, which today, I mean, it just baffles people. Like, okay, there's all these zombies around, there's all this firing and gunshots, etc., etc. I'm gonna fucking stop in the middle of the fucking mall, and I'm gonna take my blood pressure. And obviously, I mean, what did he expect to happen to him? So, I mean, there's kind of humor like that thrown in. So combining all that together, you have a masterpiece. I mean, how else do you put it? This movie is a fucking masterpiece, Dawn of the Dead. You don't need me to tell you, honestly. I could go on and on. I can't really say what hasn't already been said about this movie. For the most part, I mean, I feel like the acting is quite genuine. Not really anyone else in the cast had as big of a kind of horror impact, or even pursued a career in a larger term of things, except for Ken Foree, who's great in the movie. He's the fucking guy who you want on your side. He's like the fucking Han Solo of this movie, basically. He's getting shit done. He's watching his back, but he's his good friend in Peter. He's Peter. Roger. And he's like not really. The other two guys are not really too friendly with Steven. But Francine kind of makes a stance between all of them. She's like, I'm not gonna be the fucking den mother between you guys. You guys get along, blah blah blah. So there's good. I think there's really good chemistry. I think there's something about these four characters, all pitted together in this insane circumstance, in this insane horror, but in this insane kind of weird kind of hope, and then loss of hope, and then feelings of being trapped in despair. That we're on this kind of weird horror journey with them, and it absolutely just uh, invites us into this, and we feel like a participant, which I think is key to any effective horror movie or any effective movie in general. Obviously, that you feel like a participant, so you do actually feel invested in these characters, which these are, as far as in the horror genre goes, these are iconic characters. These are some of the best characters that we've seen, in my opinion. So you're really rooting for them, and I don't want to give away the ending, but it takes some turns where not all four of them make it out alive. What can I tell you? So I'll say that much. But the ending again, it does hold on to some hope, which I think is good. And it is a survival movie. Like, parts of it even reminded me, like, at the time when I saw this, and obviously still now, big fan of like the Alien movies or whatever. And it does kind of feel like, sort of like an Alien or Aliens kind of movie, where you have this group of survivors, and they're kind of stuck in this place, and they're kind of making a plan. They're kind of butting heads a little bit, and it's all about the greater good, which is to fucking survive, which I found great. So I was very enamored by this movie when I first saw it. I've seen it so many times since. Actually, you know what, I this is my confession, if you want to call it that. I have never seen it on another format other than VHS. So I still watch this VHS. I don't know, if I just never got around to finding the DVD or Blu-ray. I know there's some pretty awesome editions here, and this is pegged as the director's cut, so I don't even know technically. This could be like a fucking shitty version of it that, isn't the definitive version, but I think this is, the version that George wanted us to see. So to date, I haven't seen any other versions or any other media versions of it as well, like DVD or Blu-ray. But I'm happy with the VHS for now. It kind of gives it that grindhouse kind of feel to it that I really like. So it's a memory that's lasted for quite a while now. 1998. I've had this for quite some time now. Almost 20 years I've had this VHS and watch it. I'll watch this movie at least once a year. It is a horror essential. One of the best of all time. Not only one of the best horror sequels of all time. Not only one of the best sequels period of all time. This is not only one of the best zombie movies of all time. Needless to say, but it is one of the best horror movies ever made. And I don't know what quite what it is about horror movies from the 70s, but we really got some gutsy, no pun intended, horror movies from there. We had obviously like The Exorcist, The Omen, Texas Chainsaw, Halloween. So I don't quite know what it is about the 70s that kind of caused directors to rise to the occasion, but very glad I am that George A. Romero rose to the occasion, and again, obviously more of a budget than Night of the Living Dead, but not significantly so. Just putting this all together, putting his faith and talent and wizardry, for lack of a better word, into making such a great horror show. I mean, really, I can't gush enough about how good this movie is, and the location that's used. Of course, the mall. It's an actual mall. Everyone knows the story. They had to film at night. They couldn't turn the fucking music off. So throughout the whole fucking movie, you're here. And that adds to the charm. So really, I mean, what else can I say? One of the all-time classics. One of my favorites. The Dawn of the Dead, it can't be beat. So if you haven't seen it, oh my god, check it out, VHS, DVD, or otherwise. So that'll be my review, my VHS memory, a horror movie that I sought out all those years ago, and has stayed one of my favorites ever since. So I love it. That's all I really have to say. So if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. Make sure to comment, rate, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you later.